When they discover that the entire country is under the domination of an unknown demon, 5 kung fu masters begin an investigation and must fight the powerful Wukong to prevent their people from collapsing. Today we're going to recap the second season of the series, Kung Fu Panda, Paws of Destiny, from 2019. After accidentally absorbing the Shi of great ancestral masters, 4 young pandas enlist the help of the Dragon Warrior to learn how to use their new powers to save people. However, their dream of becoming superheroes isn't going according to plan, because instead of fighting bad guys, the youngsters are only called upon to help the residents of their village with boring everyday tasks. Many miles away, the Emperor of China, Kongzi, is facing a serious illness, so his last task is to prepare his daughter to take over as Empress. That afternoon, he advises Xiao to always be prepared to defend her people and asks her to send a message to Master Po. Recently, a severe drought hit the kingdom and Kongzi suspects that an enemy is involved, so he plans to ask Po to help him carry out an investigation. Having never sent a letter to anyone before, Xiao asks her most trusted advisor to help her send the message to the panda. What the Empress doesn't realize is that Shi Long is an undercover agent working for the White Bone Demon, who is really responsible for causing the Great Drought. A few days later, Po and his students receive a message from the Emperor's palace, and Nu Hai is extremely excited when she finds out that she will finally be taking part in a secret mission. That night, while resting to start his journey the next morning, Po has a nightmare in which he sees his students fighting a lion statue and getting defeated really bad. Immediately, the panda enters the battle to protect them, but new statues appear and he can't defeat them. Terrified, Po wakes up calling for his students, but is reassured by Mr. Ping and his biological father. That night, Emperor Kongzi dies and Shi Long tries to calm Xiao, who is in despair over her father's perishment. Despite her suffering, the young woman fulfills her duty and assumes the crown with the aim of maintaining her family's legacy. At dawn, the Dragon Warrior and the 4 constellations begin their journey towards the Imperial Palace. When Master Po sets off on his journey, Zhizhu, the guardian of the panda's village spring, appears with terrible news and tells him that the spring has disappeared. A few hours later, the 5 warriors arrive at an abandoned town in search of shelter for the night and are surprised by a storm. They immediately try to leave the city, but the gates close and a mysterious monkey appears. After introducing himself, Sun Wukong asks the pandas to follow him and Po is surprised by his hospitality. After dinner, the monkey prepares the rooms so that his guests can rest, but the young people begin to suspect their host's true intentions. To ensure that nothing bad happens to these youngsters, Po decides to stay awake while they sleep, but Nu Hai and her friends end up being attacked in their sleep. When they are haunted by the monkey, the youngsters wake up from their nightmare and start screaming in despair, so Po decides it's time to get out of that place. However, before leaving the abandoned city, the children realize that this is their enemy in disguise and the real Dragon Warrior is trapped inside the house. To free their master, the 4 constellations will have to defeat Sun Wukong before sunrise. Otherwise, Po will remain trapped there for 500 years. That night, Mr. Ping asks the messenger Zhang to take a message to his son, as he needs to return to the panda's village as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Nu Hai and her allies split up to attack the monkey clones in order to find out which one is the real enemy. The truth is that Wukong was captured by the gods and sentenced to be imprisoned in that city for 500 years to pay for his crime, since he stole Langan's red jade. To avoid this punishment, the monkey planned to return the stone, but someone else stole it and now the only way he can get out of there is to find a replacement to take his place. Determined to free their master, the 4 constellations spend the whole night trying to find the real monkey, but when Fan Tong finally manages to find him, it's too late as the sun is rising. However, the young people soon realize that they are still dreaming and hit themselves to wake up. When they finally wake up, they drag Po out of the hut and realize that the day has already dawned. Seeing the monkey, they run towards the gate and finally manage to leave the city, but Wukong is still trapped inside. However, when the pandas leave, the seal that prevented the monkey from leaving is broken, as he needs his freedom back in order to successfully complete his mission. When Zhang arrives in the Forbidden City to deliver the message to the Panda Master, he finds that Po hasn't arrived yet and Shi Long offers to deliver the letter in his place. Reading the contents of the message, the reptile discovers that the panda's village spring is in danger and throws the letter into the fireplace. After storming a pirate ship to get to the Forbidden City, the 4 constellations end up being imprisoned and Po has to fight off angry warriors to free his students. The next step is to abandon the boat, but the problem is that the river is infested with electric eels capable of easily eliminating a panda. Seeing a rope bridge, Jing finds a solution so that she and her friends can get off the boat safely. To do this, they need to climb to the top of the sail and Po helps everyone get safely to the bridge. But before he had a chance to jump, the pirates caught up with him and the dragon warrior had to fight his enemies alone. During the battle, Fan Tong ends up falling and his friends join in to hold him up. Seeing the children about to fall into the water, Po immediately abandons the fight and goes to find his students. Thanks to the panda's weight, the rope bridge breaks in half and the group manages to reach the riverbank safely. Meanwhile, in the panda village, Li accompanies Zhizhu to the underground temple and discovers that the spring has disappeared. Po and his students are now on their way to the fertile valley, where they will have to cross it to reach their final destination. The group is followed by Rooster and his henchmen who, thanks to them, have also managed to get off the pirate ship. After so many hours of walking, everyone is starving, but they discover that the famous fertile valley has now turned into an arid desert due to the drought that has affected the whole country. That morning, 2 soldiers sent by Shi Long arrive at the panda village looking for Mayor Li to investigate what happened to the spring. Meanwhile, Po and his friends have to deal with the desert moles, who attack them for invading the fertile valley. However, during the fight, one of the moles recognizes the members of the 4 constellations and invites them all to a banquet. The problem is that when the pandas arrive at the mole village, they discover that the moles have no food. Instead, Makeshi and his friends indulge in an imaginary feast. After dinner, the animals ask for the help of Bao, whom they have named King of the Desert, to eliminate the creature that has been attacking the village. However, on seeing the monster up close, the young panda runs away in terror and the moles discover that all the stories of bravery they have heard about him are false. That night, when he realizes that the mayor is in danger, Mr. Ping and his friends attack the invading dogs and manage to defeat them. After the attack, Zhizhu realizes that the Imperial guards have gone there to prevent the pandas from discovering that the spring has disappeared, so the spider decides to pay another visit to the underground temple. Determined to convince Qilin to leave the moles alone, Fan Tong decides to enter the cave and asks the creature to stop devouring the rodents. At that moment, Fan Tong discovered that Qilin had not devoured the moles that had disappeared from the village. The truth is that they chose to stay in the cave to keep the creature company, as it felt very lonely in there. After helping to establish peace between Qilin and the moles, Fan Tong and his friends continue their journey with the promise of convincing the Empress to send water to the fertile valley. The next morning, the group finally makes it to the Forbidden City and is greeted with great enthusiasm by Xiao. Meanwhile, Zhizhu and his team enter a tunnel they found inside the Temple of the 4 Constellations and encounter new Imperial guards. Upon realizing the presence of the invaders, the group begins a battle against the dogs and suddenly the tunnel begins to collapse. At that moment, the dogs are buried and Li and his friends are about to suffer the same fate. So Zhizhu uses his web to hold back the rubble and sacrifices himself to save them. With the arrival of the Dragon Warrior and the 4 Constellations, Xiao begins her investigation to discover the source of the drought and Po comes across the lion statues he saw in his dream. Amidst the statues, the group spots an intruder and Jing manages to strike her. As she has been seriously injured, the rabbit has to receive medical attention before being taken in for questioning. Hours later, Shi Long goes to the infirmary to talk to the rabbit and says she's disappointed that she failed in her mission to eliminate Po and the 4 Constellations. What the reptile didn't know was that Rooster was listening in on the conversation, so she orders the guards to capture him before he has a chance to open his beak. That night, during the Emperor's funeral, the rabbit appears again to attack the Empress, but Fan Tong doesn't think twice before confronting her and uses his Shi sword to get rid of his opponent, who is once again defeated. After Zhizhu has been defeated, Li, Ping and Grandma Panda continue their journey in search of the spring and end up meeting Sun Wukong on the way. Together, the trio manage to capture the monkey and tie him up to start an interrogation in an attempt to find out if he was involved in the robbery. But before they could get any answers, Wukong managed to escape and the pandas were captured by the Imperial guards along with Mr. Ping. In the morning, Shi Long finds a way to convince Master Po and his students to leave the city, asking them to accompany a new shipment of food that will be sent to villages that have been affected by the drought. When the pandas are out of town, Shi Long goes to visit her prisoners and finds Mr. Ping in a fight with Rooster. The woman orders the guards to get rid of the group and throws them all into the ocean. In the middle of the night, Nu Hai and Jing begin to suspect Shi Long's true intentions and decide to start an investigation. They quickly discover that the boxes that were supposed to be full of supplies are actually full of explosives and rush to tell Master Po the news. When they realize that the Imperial guards intend to get rid of them, the pandas band together to attack them and try to stop the dogs from detonating a dynamite. Just before the explosion, Po manages to throw the dynamite out of the airship and discovers that it was Shi Long who set them up. At that moment, the guards throw another dynamite into the powder kegs and use a parachute to escape. Seeing the explosion, Li discovers that his son was inside that airship and is furious. He immediately manages to free himself and throws all the guards off the boat. Despite the pain of losing his son, the panda knows he has to protect the residents of his village and sets off for the volcanic island where Shi Long's secret laboratory was built. Meanwhile, Po and his students are floating safely inside the turtle shell created by Bao to protect them. Knowing that the government thinks they are eliminated, the dragon warrior and his pupils have infiltrated the Forbidden City in disguise, hoping that no one will recognize them. When she receives the news about the supposed perishment of the pandas, the Empress decides to leave the palace and General Fang sends his guards to look for her. At that moment, Xiao is walking through the woods around the city when she is surrounded by a group of criminals and is about to be attacked when Fang and his soldiers appear. Even against the Empress's wishes, the guards try to take her back to the palace, but they end up being attacked by Jade Tusk, who was walking through the forest when she heard the fight and decided to save Xiao. Upon arriving at her hideout, Jade Tusk reveals that after the elimination of her former master, Jindiao, she and her warriors have dedicated their lives to helping others. Jade Tusk then shows Xiao the way home and gives her tusk as a present. Meanwhile, Li and his friends face a storm and sail across the ocean until they find Volcanic Island. That afternoon, Po and his friends set off on a journey to reach the island, only to be followed by a fleet of ships from the city of Gangmen. To make sure they don't get arrested, the pandas decide to blow up their own ship and rely on Bao's powers to protect them once again. When she returns to the palace, Xiao reveals to Shi Long her new interest in martial arts and says she wants to learn kung fu. As it is not in her interest for the Empress to learn how to defend herself, Shi Long orders the general to train the young woman and pretend to be teaching her kung fu. When he arrives on the island, Po and his students hide inside a chest and the dragon warrior has no idea that his parents and their friends are just a few meters away devouring a great feast secretly prepared by Sun Wukong. While investigating the mining company, the pandas discover that the Imperial guards are working on making new weapons. At this point, Po is spotted and surrounded by soldiers, so the four constellations must unite to help their master get rid of his enemies. In an attempt to hide, the group ends up in a warehouse and finds the warrior statues, which have apparently come to life. Immediately, the team unites to defeat their opponents, but the statues are more powerful than they imagined, as they can regenerate even after being destroyed. It doesn't take long for Po to discover that the only way to defeat them is to destroy the circle on their chest that emits a red light. After defeating all the statues, the group continues their investigation, as they now need to find out who is controlling those inanimate warriors. When she realizes that General Fang knows nothing about kung fu, the Empress asks Jade Tusk to help her start her training in secret. Every morning, Xiao leaves the palace and heads into the forest to meet her new master. Despite her efforts and genuine interest, the young woman proves to be a terrible student, as she has no talent for martial arts. Even so, Xiao doesn't give up on her goal and, as time goes by, she can see her excellent progress. Meanwhile, Po and his students keep trying to escape from the Imperial guards and end up meeting their friends along the way. Together, they search the hidden laboratories on the island and discover that Shi Long is in charge of experiments that consist of draining the Shi from the citizens of the Forbidden City. The traitor's goal is to use the power of Shi to energize the clay soldiers and form a great army. That night, Shi Long arrives on Volcanic Island and reveals that she is looking for Po and the four constellations, who were hidden inside the statues. However, when Rooster is captured and about to be cut in half, the pandas show up to save him and start a new battle against the guards. This time, the warriors end up being captured, so Li risks his life to save his son and New Hai destroys the roof so that the rocks crush her enemies. As they do so, volcanic lava begins to flow down the walls and everyone has to flee to avoid being burned. At that moment, Po and his friends enter a tunnel and use their powers to form a barrier to stop the lava. As they continue their walk, the group comes across a rope bridge and tries to cross to the other side. However, the bridge can't support all that weight and half the team ends up falling into the volcano. When she realizes that her friends are in danger, New Hai begins to think of a rescue plan and says that she will need everyone to work as a team if they are to survive. Upon returning to the Forbidden City, Shi Long goes to the Empress's room and says she has a surprise waiting for her. However, upon arriving in the Rabbit Village, Xiao is blackmailed and must abdicate the throne to prevent the villagers from being eliminated by the clay statues. Even after handing over the crown to Shi Long, the Empress sees the entire village destroyed and realizes that she made a big mistake by trusting that traitor. Hours later, in the early hours of the morning, Jade Tusk breaks into the palace to rescue Xiao, but ends up being caught in an ambush. Seeing their leader being beaten by the guards, the warriors of their monastery appear and attack the dogs, who are easily defeated by them. When she realizes that her plan has fallen apart, Shi Long tries to escape, but ends up being captured. Meanwhile, Po and his friends remain trapped in the volcano and join hands to form a giant chain. Then they swing to the other side of the cliff and Fan Tong manages to pull all his friends to the top. Upon arriving at the dungeon, Jade Tusk tries to convince the Empress to escape with her, but Xiao refuses because she knows that Shi Long will hurt even more people if she leaves. So Jade Tusk decides to leave on her own and meets Po and his team during their escape. With the help of the pandas, the warrior gets rid of the guards who followed her and the group escapes through an underground tunnel. What they didn't imagine was that the tunnel would lead them out of the cave, where they would meet Sun Wukong once again. During the conversation, the monkey talks about the white bone demon and claims that he buried her spirit in the earth's core. Years later, when the monkey broke into the red jade mine to try and get one of those stones, he discovered that all the jade had been stolen along with his crown and he was blamed for the theft he didn't commit. However, recently, the gods discovered that it was the white bone demon who had stolen those crystals and offered Sun Wukong his freedom back if he managed to recover those stones. So the monkey asks for the help of the warrior pandas to fulfill his mission and claims that Shi Long is working for the demon. After discovering the truth, Po and the four constellations decide to accept Wukong as a temporary member of their team. All the group knows so far is that Shi Long has a large army of clay statues that is energized by red jade. However, the monkey claims that jade cannot do this on its own, as it only serves to conduct energy. At this point, Po discovers that the spring has been stolen from the panda's village and is now being used as a source of energy to bring those statues to life. To prevent Shi Long from completing her evil plan, the team decides to storm the castle on the day of the coronation ceremony while Jade Tusk and her warriors destroy the clay soldiers. Then, just as Xiao was about to abdicate the throne and pass the crown on to her advisor, Po appeared and revealed Shi Long's true intentions to all the residents of the Forbidden City. In an attempt to defend herself against the accusations, the reptile claims that Po and his friends are responsible for causing the drought in that country. She then orders the guards to free the army of statues and take the alleged traitors into custody. At this point, Sun Wukong appears and assumes the identity of the pandas to confuse the Imperial guards. Seeing her friends fighting to save their kingdom, Xiao musters all her courage to confront Shi Long and discovers that it was she who caused the perishment of the former emperor through poisoning. When she discovers the truth, the Empress is furious and attacks her enemy, but ends up being captured. Seeing the young woman in danger, Fan Tong and Bao go after her while the rest of the team tries to get rid of the guards. After arresting the Empress along with Rooster and his gang, Shi Long carries out the final part of the summoning process and helps the white demon's spirit take on a new physical body. Thanks to the power of the red jade and the energy of the spring, the villain is able to come back to life and attacks her enemies with ferocity. Looking at the top of the demon's head, Po sees Wukong's crown and the monkey decides to run away so that his enemy can't control him. During the battle, Bao and Fan Tong climb the statue's body to free the Empress, but Fan Tong ends up being captured. Seeing the young panda in danger, Po and Nu Hai attack the beast and Xiao manages to save her friend. While the prisoners escape, the dragon warrior manages to remove the crown from the iron statue's head. He then launches the airship at the demon and brings it down with a huge explosion. When she realizes that the white demon has been defeated, Shi Long despairs because she knows she needs her to ascend to the throne. Upon hearing her ally's complaints, the villain devours her and claims that the deal has been broken. To complete her plan of domination, the white demon revives all the other statues and personally attacks Po and his friends. At that moment, Wukong regains his crown and transforms into a giant monkey to protect his allies. During the battle, the group hides inside the tower to come up with a new plan and Nu Hai uses the monkey's crown to control it. With the help of her friends, the young panda manages to capture the demonic statue and throw it out of town. The group then needs to head to the Fertile Valley to continue the battle, as this is the only chance they have of defeating the white demon. The only way to send her back to the spirit world is to remove the red jade on her chest. However, just as Nu Hai was about to do so, Wukong began to shrink, having spent all his energy on the battle. Then, as the iron statue prepares to crush its enemies, Makeshi and his legion of moles dig up the sand to bury it and Qilin also appears to join his friends in the battle. With the help of the pandas, Xiao manages to get close to the iron statue and uses the tusk she got from Jade Tusk to pierce the huge jade stone that served as a conduit to energize the demon's body. When the crystal is destroyed, the spirit that was trapped inside the statue frees itself and returns to the spirit realm. After the statue is destroyed, the Empress finds Shi Long buried in the rubble and asks for Jing's help to heal her. Suddenly, the fragments of red jade explode and restore fertility to the valley floor. Its power is also enough to end all drought in the country, undoing all the damage caused by Shi Long and the White Demon. A few days later, the pandas return to their village to return the spring to the temple and discover that Zhizhu is alive. After saving all of China from imminent collapse, the 4 constellations were presented by Mayor Li, who awarded each of them a Medal of Honor for serving their country. Although she forgave Shi Long, the Empress did not absolve her of her mistakes and sentenced her to prison, appointing Jade Tusk as her new advisor. So what did you think of this series? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more series recaps. See you next time.